Today I want to talk about something it's something that's common in the realm of physics, and it's also applicable in the realm of quantum physics, and that is the word entropy. Entropy, and basically entropy is the state of thermodynamics where things go from order to disorder. And astrophysicists say that the universe is basically in a state of entropy. In other words, it's not ordering; it's going to chaos or to disorder. And it's interesting because entropy, for most things, represents the path of least resistance. It's like how water likes to flow downhill, electricity likes to flow through things that are low resistance or good conductors, copper, silver, gold, platinum. So electricity likes to flow through those things. And basically, left to their own devices, everything runs out of energy. And once the energy is gone from a thing, then it basically loses its function. And that's kind of how life works. You're born, you're full of energy, and then you die. You lose your energy. And what I want to talk about today is how entropy works in spirituality, particularly how it works with people and relationships. It's really interesting how this works because, when you find friends, and in my life, there are basically two ways that I've made friends. One is that I find people that I just vibe with right away. I got a colleague that I work with that I've only known him since March, but it seems like we've known each other for years. The funny thing is, he's from Detroit. He's 14 years younger than me, but it's like we just hooked up. We vibed right away. I had another friend, Paul Freeman. We went through new hire training at SAP America 20, oh boy, almost 25 years ago. And when we met, people asked us, "Hey, how long you guys known each other?" Said we met yesterday. So there are those people who you just vibe with right away. Now I have another friend, and I'm going to pick on him tonight in a good way. And my friend's name is Jack Howard. Is Ulysses Jack Howard, and Jack and I were rivals when we did talk radio. In other words, he was the raging liberal Democrat, and I was the rabid conservative Republican. And so particularly like around election season like this, the program director would basically devote a lot of time, airtime, to Jack and I being on the air, butting heads. But a funny thing happened, in 1995. Some of you who have known me that long, my wife died, and so when she died, it was like Jack simply showed up. It's like when he found out and here's the thing. I always liked Jack. We had a relationship. We had a good professional relationship. We disagreed on a lot of things politically, but we generally liked each other. But he showed himself to be a true friend in the face of adversity. So I have some friends that we just been friends because we vibed, and then I have some friends that it looked like it was an uphill thing, but it turned out to be worth the effort. So water finds its way downhill. Electricity finds the path of least resistance. Humanity likes to find the easiest path wherever possible. And here's the thing, that sometimes that path is not exactly the way. Now, we have something that occurs here in nature on the earth. It's called water. And I believe that the chemical term for water is hydrogen dioxide, or dihydrogen oxide. Basically, it's two atoms of hydrogen to one atom of oxygen. But there's an interesting thing that happens. It's a covalent bond. And look that up in physics, or in chemistry. But it's a covalent bond where basically each there is like a space in the oxygen atom whereby hydrogen is able to lend one of its electrons to the oxygen atom. And so when two of these come together, basically you get water. And this is like the old song, that by the Beatles. I get by, I get high with a little help from my friends. When you are trying to live against entropy, and there's a fancy term for the opposite of that as called negentropy. Negentropy. You can look that up too. But anyway, basically, if you take a marble and sit it at the top of a hill and roll it down, it's going to follow the slope of the hill, and gravity and all of its things are going to do what it does to make it run downhill. But if there was something, either wind pressure, water pressure, a physical shove or a nudge, you could get that marble to roll uphill. And that's an interesting thing about spirituality, right? Is that sometimes people show up in your life to either lend you an electron or to give you something, to give you energy to go uphill. And I'm saying all this because I'm going through this thing now where I'm trying to streamline my friends list. Because I can deal with people who I disagree with, but what I can't deal with are people who steal my energy. In other words, left to my own devices, I'm going to tend to entropy. But if I have some help, I get negentropy, and basically I get energy to go uphill. It's just like how when you're hungry, it means your energy stores are depleted and you need some food to provide your body with the energy it needs to continue on. Likewise, there are people in your life who will show up and they will feed your spirit. And these are the people you want around you. Now, listen, I have friends who I disagree with. Matter of fact, I have some friends that I disagree with, or that I hardly agree with anything. But over a given period of time, I've seen how they have been life-giving to me. They have been energy givers. They have provided me with negentropy. They have fed me. And watch this. This is the part that I want y'all to get for those of y'all who are Bible scholars, because Jesus said that out of your bodies would flow rivers of living water. Check this out. Because of how an atom or an electron of two atoms of hydrogen are able to bond to an atom of oxygen and produce water, that if you were to have two atoms of oxygen connecting to two atoms of hydrogen, you get something called hydrogen peroxide. Now, hydrogen peroxide has its uses. It's great as an accelerant for rocket fuel. It's great as a bleaching agent. And it's great as a disinfectant. However, consumption of hydrogen peroxide will kill you. because part of what your liver does in your body is it removes hydrogen peroxide through the excretion of enzymes. And these enzymes basically consume the hydrogen peroxide and turn it into water, which helps to keep you alive. See, the thing is that when you look at a glass of water and a glass of hydrogen peroxide without knowing the chemical composition of either, you would mistake the two. You would easily confuse them. And to be honest, even the taste is probably going to be similar. However, once you take that swig of peroxide and that rascal starts foaming in your mouth, you know that you just drank something that is not good for you. And that's what I'm saying, is that there are some people that are going to be living water to you. Their free electrons are going to bond with your oxygen, or your hydrogen electrons are going to bond with their oxygen. And between the two of you, or between the three of you, or whatever the group number is, that you are going to produce something that's life-giving to everyone in the group. This is so amazing, because when you look at this, this helps you to understand how people work in your life. And people have kind of jumped on me because I say, hey, if you're toxic to me, I'm going to disengage with you. And they say, well, you're supposed to love everybody. I love everybody. I love tigers and lions. I love peroxide. I love nuclear power. There's a whole bunch of things that I love that I don't necessarily have to be coochie crunch with. Do you follow what I'm saying? I don't have to be buddy buddy, chummy chummy with everything. I only have to work with the things that work with me. And likewise, that there is a group of elements on the periodic table called the halogen elements, and that these halogen elements, that they, when they have an ionic bond, they react and produce a light. That's where you get halogen headlamps from, or halogen bulbs, right? That this electronic charge causes an excitation in the atomic part of it that produces light. So there are some people that produce life-giving substance in you, and again, look at sodium chloride, right? Sodium chloride, salt, table salt. Table salt by itself is basically, yeah, it's a pretty friendly thing, as long as you use it in moderation. But they have sodium hydroxide, which is also known as lye, which will burn you. You see what I'm saying? It's like you're taking like chemicals and putting them in like bonds, but even in the like bonds, they produce a toxic result. And you gotta be careful of that. That's why when people say they have good chemistry, that's what they're talking about. That what you have contributing to someone else is not toxic to them, and what they have is not toxic to you. And that's why I said, like, there are just certain people right now that have basically embraced a particular ideology that when I look at it, I say, this is toxic to me. This is something that would either harm me emotionally, spiritually, or even physically. And so when I see that something is harmful to me, I have no reason to accept it into my life. I don't have any obligation to receive anything toxic. If it's poison, it's poison, and I leave it alone. I'll leave it on the table. Listen, here's the other thing too, and this will help you. This is like the game for free. That when you're dealing with social media, Some people they have a high tolerance for bullshit. And that's cool for those people that are like that, because they can befriend someone that may or may not be someone that would be their friend in real life. And they're cool with it because it's social media. There is a social distancing that's inherent in that. But my philosophy is that if you are not someone that I would kick it with in real life, I have no reason to kick it with you in social media. I have no reason to be chummy or listen, and let me say something and make something really clear, is that I love everyone. And there is not a human being that I wouldn't help that's within my power to do so. And I try to see through the eyes of the people that I come into contact with, whether I agree with them or not. But if the degree of disagreement is sufficient enough, then that means that that's somebody I may not want to just consistently kick it with. And this is really important. So this water thing, it's funny because they say that water is one of the most ubiquitous chemical compounds in the universe. There's liquid water all over the place. Frozen water, liquid water, gaseous water. There's a lot of water out here. Now, one of the things is that water, in order for it to be living, has to be coming from a good source. That means that it has to be coming from something or somewhere or someone whose motives are good. When someone's motives are bad, it's not living water. And this is one of the reasons why in my deconstruction, I've come to this thing about the Bible where I don't really see, I don't see the Bible as inerrant or infallible anymore. And I certainly don't see it as 100% accurate. And I certainly don't see it as a rule and guide for life. Why? Because this was actually an instrument of control. Do you understand that when people canonized, or when they, first of all, when they wrote the Bible, not everyone was literate. And then when they canonized the Bible, not everyone was literate. And I think that when they canonized the Bible, that they actually believed that illiteracy would be the rule pretty much forever. But see, now you have Google, you have all these different search engines. You have Goodreads. You got Amazon. You can read stuff. You can find stuff out. And when you do that, you'll find that, okay, yes, there are some truths in the Bible, just like there are some truths in Hamlet. There are some truths in the Quran. There are some truths in the Bhagavad Gita. Pretty much any book, no book is just completely full of lies. Because in order for, even if it is predominantly lies, it has to have a prevailing truth in order for people to buy the lie. That's kind of like the way it works. So what I want to talk about, or what I really want to drive home here, is this whole thing about entropy and why it's important. Because listen, sometimes life is going to take you on the path of least resistance. Have you ever done something that was just effortless to do, but then at the end of it, it was kind of anticlimactic? It was a little boring. That's how entropy works. Entropy, things roll downhill. They find the path of least resistance. They pretty much run downstream. It's simple. But when you find people who are able to lend their energy to you, just like how food feeds you, water quenches your thirst and hydrates you, that when you do these things, you have the strength to go uphill. And so you'll find some people in your life that are going to give you life. And they are going to give you the opposite of entropy. They are going to push you uphill. And that's a beautiful thing. It's like when you find people who push you uphill, what you're finding is there is a quantum aspect to that. In other words, something very small and went and under the right conditions of observation, that you actually see something change. In other words, the field that surrounds things, that is love, that is life, that is the universe. This field, when basically there is an excitation in the field that causes particles which are manifested as us, and there some particles are opposing and some are complementary. But what happens is that there are these particles, when one particle is able to give energy to another, it helps to sustain the other particle, or both particles are sustained it with a greater frequency because of the negentropy. In other words, that they share something in common. So I think that, believe it or not, that's pretty much what I have for today. I just want you to see that you can either give something to people that energizes, that nourishes, that aspirates them, or you may take away from someone. You may starve someone. You may cause someone to have thirst and steal their energy. And listen, here's the thing. A lot of times when we do that to people, we often don't see it ourselves. But if you see that the person that you're dealing with is fatigued by you, then the thing for you to do, if you're operating in empathy and compassion, is to back off from that. Let them be. And I'll tell you something again. I personally don't have time to deal with spiritual, emotional, or even physical vampires. I don't. I'm looking right now in my life. I'm 58 years old, and everything that I'm doing now is something that's swinging for the fences. I'm not trying to bunt anymore. And so when I'm dealing with people, I'm looking for people that not only are going to help coach me to hit those home runs, but I'm looking for the people who will cheer when I do. Because life is too short for just keeping company with people who only want to take from you. You have energy, my friend. You have power. That's something that was baked into you from creation. So take that energy and use it to fuel someone else. And here's the interesting part, that when you lend energy to someone else is out there waiting to lend energy to you. You will not simply be depleted. You will only be depleted if you allow yourself to be. If you allow the life to be sucked out of you, if you allow that, it'll happen. But if you're giving and the people who are receiving it, they're also, listen, because of the chemical bond, like I mentioned with hydrogen and oxygen, because you're giving something, it's giving something back. So when you're truly giving from an empathetic and compassionate heart, that energy is returned to you. And even if it's not returned to you in that particular exchange, it will be returned to you in another one, because that is the nature of spiritual chemistry. Can you dig it? So if you have any questions or comments, please hit me up on my website, www.derrickday.com. Go to the contact page, and it'll give you a form. You fill it out, and it'll send me an email. And I promise you that if you send me an email, I will return it. Also, be sure to check out the Heretic Happy Hour podcast, where I'm joined by Matthew DiStefano, Katie Valentine, and my man Keith Giles. And I just changed the name of my podcast from Love Forward to Forward, because I'm going to deal with a lot of other things besides simply spiritual matters. But it's all going to be all about moving humanity forward at the speed of thought. So, and then also check out my blog, Love Minus Religion, on Pathos. And you can also hit me up on Instagram, Twitter. My handle is Derrick E. Day. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you're watching anywhere else, be sure to like and share, because sharing is caring, right? I love, man, there's a whole bunch of people out here. I love their stuff and I share their stuff. Just, I'm just asking the same thing. And I think that pretty much covers it. So until the next time, namaste. I see the God in you. Namaste. I see the light in you. Be sure to tune in, same time, Friday, for Phreology Friday. And I'll be there to kick the can down the road a little further. All right, peace.